Well, guys, has anybody had a chance to read any of the book?
I got 5 pages in.
Oh, well, that doesn't
I
count.
read part 1, which is 46 pages,
Yeah.
but I read it last week on the day I bought the book, so I don't remember much.
Yeah, there's a lot of real good reviews, and some of us have read this book or one of his other books, Fanatical Prospecting, and one of the guys on my team told us about it, and then I started listening to about a year ago to his podcast called Sales Gravy. He is talking about here. I thought I had this marked correctly. Yeah, it's in the introduction. He says it's a challenge to separate the good salespeople from the mediocre ones when the high tide is lifting all boats. It's low tide that reveals the truth about their skills. Down cycles punish foolishness and poor judgment, weeds out the incompetent, and exposes salespeople who have strayed from the fundamentals. What about your industry? What about that in your industry? What do you think about that?
I think it's true. I do the best decision making about accepting a client when I'm completely covered up. Because I have to really think about, is this a fit? Is it work I should be doing? Is there a match of skills? And when you're new and you're kind of desperate, you probably take on stuff you shouldn't.
Yeah. Moving over here to a little bit of noise over there.
Yeah.
What about you, Beth? Are y'all I mean, my business is definitely in a recession. Okay. But Tom, is your business, let me go back to you for a second. Tom, is your business down right now?
No, I can't even. I have to just tell people, stop. I need more data. We are so short the number of CPAs, and then you're short the number of people that do public.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm up 20% from last year, and last year was a record.
Okay. Beth,
I'd love to attribute to how great I am, but it's not the case. You got people come and go, I can't even locate my CPA from last year.
Yeah, what
the heck is that?
Yeah, we needed a letter from a CPA this morning, and I was shocked. You'd have thought this lady was Tom Bardsley. That's how quick she came as she responded, and so it was very pleasing. Yeah, and because normally it's not that quick with CPAs the last 3 years. Beth, how's your business? Is it in a crisis or any type of recession?
Well, good question, because there's the pharmaceutical business as a whole, and they were kind of, I don't know, people still go to the doctor, whatever, and things were kind of crazy during the pandemic. But I'm on a contract with Amgen, and then we're co-marketing with AstraZeneca, and it took off way faster than they thought. They hired 20 people to run a hub. They now have 100 people working in the hub.
Wow.
There are 30 people doing what I do, and they're expanding it to 40 right now. And so I would say it's because it's a drug that there's a demand for. They came out with a good product. So it's kind of like the low tide, high tide. It doesn't matter if it's low tide if you've got a great product that doctors want to put their patients on. So we're doing really well. And yeah, it's crazy. But I can also say that we've got some people who do what I do who aren't that great, but nobody does anything about it because they need the people. It's not like there's layoffs and we're going to keep the best 20. And in pharmaceuticals, they never keep the best anyway. They do it sort of, just by the computer. They don't really do it based on your performance. they'll lay off, when they lay off sales reps, they'll lay off the top sales reps sometimes because they just do it geographically or what the potential is for products. So again, computer driving things instead of human analysis sometimes.
Right. What about you, Hurdy?
Hard question. My market's been getting more fragmented in the last 2 years, meaning that it's social media has become online divided. A lot of people follow their where they feel comfortable. Working, trying to decide which arenas to work in that are the most profitable. In my case, I'm going to use that word you love. My experience, it keeps me above. I can always tell a Mr. Newbie when he comes into the business that I'm competing with because I hear him say the newbie things. So I would say that during these crisis times, that's the title of the book, that the experience factor will come in handy for the sales side. If I choose to really get crazy, I'm still experimenting. I have been for a year on selling classes. And like I said, I'm not sure if they're not written right or if there's just not a demand for it. So I'm trying to figure stuff out as we go. So it's not a matter of the sales cycle. It's a matter of, am I selling the right product? When people offer the same stuff you're trying to sell on YouTube for free, and you got people like Hillsdale and these educational portals, these colleges giving you introductory courses with professional people that are really giving out great information. I'm taking 2 classes right now myself. My little $40 class on Google Business means nothing compared to the top economic guys talking about how to keep yourself afloat in bad economic times, right? From Hillsdale. So
what classes Hillsdale are you taking?
I'm taking the economics, the economy class on how economics works, which I already know, but it's nice to go back and be refreshed on capitalism. And there's more that I'm going to take. But my point is, you almost have to put in $100,000 into the portal in order to be successful at selling. If you don't have $100,000 product, you're not going to make any money today, because the real sizzlers, the YouTube creators, the people that are teaching classes, have the money, have the background, and they know how to present, and they get the right people in it, and that's where people go. That's so. What I decided. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Purdy.
Well, what I was going to say is, what it determines for me is that I need to focus on local, because local is the place where the business is, and the selling needs to be done networking and face to face more than it needs to be done online. Right. You need to shake hands during crisis times. You need to make sure people know who you are.
I would just say that in the cycles I've experienced, which have been a lot, the first 2 things I see my clients cut, or businesses, period, in a crisis, are advertising and training.
Yeah.
Exactly 2 things they shouldn't cut. So they can't figure out why their competition keeps training their people, come out on the other side looking great, because they didn't invest. And people either they're not ready or they leave. And we see that here we go again.
Well, Tom, if you have a plumbing company you've been working with since 2012, has 12 trucks, and they're now tripling their gas price, they have to cut their budget somewhere, even because their prices aren't, even though they're still charging a fair price for a service and in a competitive market, but their costs still go up. So they have to start looking at where to cut, right? And so maybe they don't dial you out, but they dial you back, right? And that's when you got to put on your selling hat and give them the advantages to why they need to keep you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, now, go ahead, Dan.
I just hung up with somebody. I cut back on a service this morning, and she did a real good job calling me, asked me why, and I said, well, I've been paying you $79 a month for 5-6 years. Don't really use your service much anymore, and I'm scaling back on some things. And she said, well, your membership is good through the 21st. I'm going to send you a link. I want to be sure you've been in our website. And so we've revamped it, which I haven't. I admitted I haven't been in there much. So it's my CMPS designation. So, but she did a real good, to y'all's points. She did put her sales hat on, reached out to me, emailed me first, then just blatantly call me. And and I try to look at it, and I will.
Purdy, I want to add to what we talked about. What I try to do with my clients is to go, okay, have you're cutting expenses, but have you looked at how you price your product? That doesn't mean they can just flip a switch. I mean, restaurants are a great example. You can't just go in and raise your prices 25%.
No.
People vote with their feet and leave.
Yep.
But, like you said, you can't give away the price of diesel fuel if you're a plumber. I mean, you got to get your stuff and your people there. So that's the sort of thing I do to say, okay, let's invest in look at your pricing strategy. And it may be that, yes, cost cutting is essential for survival, but you're not a nonprofit. And you're going to compete against people who have no idea if they're making money. Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Plumbers are a great example. My competition runs a $99 special on cable TV. Yeah, but their service sucks and they're losing money. And they go, oh, but they're afraid to step up and do something about it. But it's tough. Owners are really leery of that.
Well, let's jump into what he's saying here about some of this. He's talking about, I'm just going to hit some highlights that I've got marked here. The salespeople who survive are the ones who become disciplined, focus on the fundamentals, maintain a winning mindset. Your success in capturing these opportunities lies in your willingness to create a new vision for your future. And that's something I've been working through. I have a vision statement in the front of my spiral, that really hardback spiral notebook that I use and just run through about every 12 to 15 weeks and make a copy and I tape it to the front page. But I'm having to rewrite mine right now because my business is my business is in a depression. It's not in a recession. Whatever the country's in a recession or not, my business is in a depression. So I've had to go through, and I'm still working on. I'm trying to get a good grip on my vision, statement. And
Danny,
yeah,
I was just going to say, I can remember being laid off, not having a job. You are completely lost.
Yeah.
And it's that mindset of I don't have to find all the jobs. I only have to find one job for me.
Yep.
So when he's talking about the mindset of selling yourself to somebody,
right,
to hire me.
Yeah, he says here, and this is I'm in the first chapter, which is called, if you don't have it, Rise and Survive. And it says, you create a new vision, energize yourself, do the hard work, resolve to look through the windshield rather than the rearview mirror. I mean, I was thinking about that this morning. Forget what's Bible says, forget what lies in the past. The disciplined salespeople who faithfully execute the fundamentals will outmatch their competitors, take market share, and then he says, put your swimsuits on. So he's talking about jumping in the water. The one common characteristic that defines all consistent top performers in any field is focus on, practice of, and adherence to the basic building blocks. And for me, one of those is what I'm saying no to. And I'm really spinning back on things that I'm saying no to. And a couple of opportunities that have come my way, and I go, nope, not interested. I'm focusing, I've pulled into the reverse mortgage market. I'm spending 30 minutes to an hour a day reviewing training films and new training films. And he says here, excellence in sales requires you master time management, prospecting, qualifying, discovery, listening, advancing, presenting, objections, negotiation, and closing. Be disciplined and stick to the fundamentals. And now this next statement made me think about the end of Atomic Habits. Remember what he said, that one of the dangers of developing a good habit is it becomes boring. Okay, remember that? It becomes boring. It's what he says right here on page 9. In a crisis, boring works. So then next chapter, be right now. And in part here, he's saying, be where you're at. My mother-in-law used to say that. Be where you're at.
Well, Danny, just a question for you. So, I mean, how many of the what my clients call weekend warriors that were in real estate are going to fall out?
Yeah, there's
A lot,
Dan,
right?
Yeah, Dan sent me some numbers a couple of weeks ago that in our NAR put out, and it's a massive amount of realtors. You know, I started saying back in June that 40% of the mortgage people would be gone by the end of the year. You know, our licenses have to be renewed by 12/31, between 11/1 and 12/31 every year. It might be more than that. The number has gone down. Okay. So some good stuff in here about right now is the only thing that's real. You can wallow in worry, or you can take action. Just any actions right now. Actions. If you want to survive and thrive, you got to be right. You've got to be right now. I've got all new systems I've been, getting used to in our CRM, and learning a new CRM and getting stuff uploaded. I've been for 2 weeks. I've been doing very good follow through. Today, today I started stapling cards to white pieces of paper and making notes for my 8-step follow. Yes, Gary Casper came by a while ago, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I told him, I said, "Man, this is my paper CRM until I get one up and running. I got to do what's right now." So he says here that right now, he's got a list here. I'm going to read through real quick. Right now, the potential to change everything. What actions can you make right now that will contribute to your bottom line? What actions can you take right now to build your pipeline? Right now, what can you do to retain your customers? I watch Ray Freer. That guy is incredible what he does to retain. 80% of what he does during the renewal time for health insurance is retaining clients. Spending time going through them, and this what is it, Tom? About a 60-day period. It's not quite full 60 days, I think, but he's working 12, 14 hours a day because he's maintaining clients.
So Danny, I was going to say, selling in a crisis, regardless what this book says, throughout the book, without even reading all of it yet, is that you should be always taking at least 80 to 85% of your existing clients and pushing out to them, because they're already a part of what you do. They're more receptive, they're more open, they listen to you, they take advice, they want to spend, even if they don't spend a lot, they can still spend some with you. I'm just one of these people who believe that it's harder to get a new customer, and it's really easy to keep an existing customer if you treat them right.
And I believe that's how he this scanning the book. I believe that's what he's going to be talking about later on. Is I've got people calling me, and I have not done a good job this year, especially staying in contact with people. But I do have people contacting me just out of the blue, I hadn't talked to in a while. So, but yeah, just looking through, I mean, he's got 55 chapter titles in here. Just looking at some of those chapter titles, you can tell it's taking care of your existing business, right?
It is always more expensive to recruit a new customer. Even if it's zero out of pocket, you have your time investment.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah. But one thing he's saying right now is, here is don't, you got to focus on what you know works. Trying a bunch of new things is not necessarily the time to do that. Then he goes into the only three things you control: your actions, your reactions, and your mindset. To outsell this crisis, it is crucial that you acknowledge the truth and step back from your emotional need to find the easy street.
And Danny, I would also say the easy street and that shiny new thing, right? But also selling today is different from what it used to be. It's still, selling is still an art, meaning you got to go through a process, but you have to understand that online today, ask Beth, ask Tom, they're the consumer. They're in charge of the buying process. They can make the decision who they want to buy from without ever talking first to a salesperson, right? They can go online, do the research, and then of those people they've researched, they will choose eventually who they feel they trust and can have a relationship with. So, selling now becomes how I react to people researching me and wanting to know information. So that follow-up thing you're talking about, I got so many thoughts on this. It's crazy. I remember taking the Gail Carnegie sales class and being a group leader back in 1983. And here's what you said: Mr. Customer, would you mind while I'm sitting here today if I take intensive notes so that I can make sure I better understand what you need? You remember that line?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And great. So you don't mind if I take a few notes and ask a few questions, Mr. And you took them through this gauntlet of questions and opinions, and you had word tracks to replace that. Guess what? The millennials could care less about that crap today. They go shop online and say, here's the book for 12. Here's the book for 10. I'm buying the book for 10 over here. So one of the things I'd like, hopefully we'll dive into this selling in crisis, is maybe we can talk a little bit about how to sell into that, because I'm not even a master at that yet. Because
well, let's see what he comes up with here, because but along that line right there, he's talking about brutal truths. Okay, things will get worse before they get better. There will be winners and losers. Bad things will happen to good people. Businesses will fail. Some people are going to lose their jobs.
Absolutely.
Some people will take pay cuts, lose their homes, lose their life savings. I mean, that's what's going on right now. I woke up the other morning thinking about carpetbaggers. Remember what carpetbaggers were back in the Depression? And people that show up from out of town literally with a carpet bag. It was what their bags were made out of, and they were coming in to take advantage of the people of the Depression. And I'm focusing, and I've been wanting to for about 5 years move. Well, when I turned 62, I'd said for years I was going to move into the reverse mortgage market when I became of age myself to get a reverse mortgage. And I really hadn't done it. I've done a few the last 5 years, but I've done quite a few over the years. But now I'm doing it, and one reason is I had a guy come up to me at church the other day, Chris, at church. Tom, you know him, and he came up to me, and he runs a private equity firm. It's his own money, I guess. And he says, "So, man, Danny, mortgage business is it's got to be hurting with consumer spending going up, hence debt, okay, and people's savings going down, hence money to buy a house, okay. So two things directly inverted to what you want to see with people buying a house." And I said, well, that's why I've switched over to the reverse side, to really focusing on reverse mortgages, so people can tap into their equity and only make a payment if they want to, when they want to, until they move out the house or die. And so in one sense, I'm kind of maybe that was the carpetbagger taking advantage of of this downside to this market. But he says here that some people will have to start all over again. Somebody said to me this morning, said, "Man, are you having to start all over?" I said, "No, not really, because I've got my database." I said, "But when business grinds to literally a halt, you feel like you're starting all over." But every mortgage person, for the most part, is starting all over right now. And unless you work for a builder, or unless you're working for a publicly traded builder, publicly traded builders, they're publicly traded. Their main concern is stock price, and that's driven off of sales, number of sales units, not necessarily profitability. And they've retained, they've done things, with the financial statements that they're allowed to do, according to general accounting principles. Tom could speak to this, that they can set aside so they're using money now that they made in the past. It's been rolled over, however that works, Tom, right? So that their main thing is they can lose money on houses right now, pay people to get into houses with mortgages to keep building houses. So, which we do need.
So Danny, I would think that the number one thing we need to be telling ourselves is we should put on 3x5 card every morning. And I'm speaking for myself, right? Once again, when I say we, I need to revert that to I. Sorry about that, y'all. Is what do I need to do right now? What do I need to do right now?
Yeah, what lies ahead of you, he says here, is a hard, emotional, draining grind. The grind is the price you have to pay to rise above the fray. Choose your path. While everyone else is losing, it will not be easy. You'll have to grind to shine.
Well, Danny, I've even noticed in the last month that the questions I'm asked at networking have changed.
Okay.
Because people they're looking at this economy. I'm an optimist, but I'm a realist.
Right.
And they come to me, start asking hard questions.
What you're saying is you're a positive realist.
Absolutely. I mean, I absolutely, I believe in the positive because I've seen these cycles, but you can't just assume you're going to get lucky.
Yep.
We've got some issues, and it all starts when you print, $3 trillion worth of money. What it did to the economy, and so we're dealing with that. And I'm also trying to ask everyone I meet in networking some pertinent question about their industry, hopefully enlighten myself, but also to indicate definitely my interest. I'm not there to just, kill time. And it's amazing the feedback I'm getting, because they'll turn around and ask that kind of question versus, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. I'm closing the next 42 home loans. Well, they're not closing their 42 home loans, right?
Right.
They're praying to get the next close. And so they're really paying attention to that. I mean, that's good in the economy. I think we've got a lot of smart people in Austin, but they may have never been through one of these, man. I mean, somebody that, graduated from college in 2013, it's all up. I mean, they haven't seen it.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting what the people that I'm seeing out networking. I'm not seeing realtors. I'm not seeing mortgage people. The people in this industry that right now might be others that are going to be impacted. The people that are out, I mean, Tom, I hadn't thought about this right now. I'm going to be paying attention, but I'm not sure that I'm seeing a lot of small business. I'm seeing a few, but I'm not seeing a lot of pure small business owners. I'm seeing salespeople who work for other people that are out there.
Typical, Danny, the owners are terrified.
Yeah.
They've been through this. So they're trying to figure out what to do. And not that you won't see owners, but again, I think you can learn something from people even if it's not, it may be tough, it may look or sound totally irrelevant at the moment. But I had this happen last Wednesday. I asked somebody a question like, oh, that's interesting. It wasn't 2 hours later, I got a call from a client. It was dead right on what I need to know. And I'm like, wow. I mean, I can't predict that. You can't predict the question.
So I would think that some of the selling in a crisis, Danny, would be adjusting our product. Like, for instance, I now call my 4-hour my 4-hour consulting package, they can use any way they like, the inflation marketing package online, because for $200 they get 400 hours, they get 4 hours of my time anytime they want to use it on any subject in marketing online. So that just takes all the pressure off. And it's just another way of revamping. Instead of saying I'm $50 an hour, right? For consulting, I wrap it up in a little package they can use anytime. So it's, sometimes you just have to rethink how you're presenting your product, right? Mm-hmm. And it's been fairly successful since I launched it. I mean, I just say, hey, I've got this 4-hour program for $200, right? And it's not a lot of money and it takes a little amount of time, but you know, most of them just want to get on Zoom, because that's the way I do it, and say, what's your question? Let's go, let's dive into it, and then toggle that time and go from there. Yep. So that's one way I think selling in crisis, we can revamp how we see. I see Tom and Beth as saving people tons of money, because they're always, I see Tom going in and saying, okay, great, I get to help you evaluate what not to do right now. So he gets paid a fee for actually helping them, and Beth too, because she gets to present doctors with what's really working on the market today, as opposed to what was not working or working yesterday, right? They have new technology. So I kind of see y'all's places saving clients money long run, and doctors and stuff, because they feel comfortable prescribing. And Tom, they feel comfortable because you publicly take these large companies and help them see the big picture. And Danny, you know, the mortgage business is not going to go away. People are going to buy houses,
well,
you know, at some point, right?
Yeah. And Danny, let me add this for you. Okay. There's a lot of people in your industry. Forgive my French, but most of them don't know spit. Yeah. They just get a person, throw it into an application process and walk away. I mean, you're solving a problem, and with what's going on, they need like 3 times what you're doing, because, you know, they're going to get ground up in the dust of this. Right. You know, without your expertise. So, I mean, we've all got that. We're just trying to be
and there are, you know, there are some loans that are, I mean, the Rocket mortgages, you know, they close 2% of their loan applications because they're looking for the cream of the crop.
Right.
Okay. They're looking, there's a certain type of loan that won't go into detail, but that they're looking for. And the rest of people move off because if you need a lot of response if you need response from an LO, you need to be asking LO questions. Those people come back. They leave Rocket and come somewhere else.
Well, Danny, let me ask you this: how do you tap into that 98% they booted out?
Well, I can't. I just, you know, through my network, through people. You had some. They ended up not calling me, but I had somebody that, or they did call me once, but then ghosted me. But that's okay. Gave them some information, and you know, they couldn't get a hold of the person at Rocket. You can go online and get your pre-qual and just and then, you know, you think you make X dollars per year. Well, you know what? You don't make that much. You thought you did, but that was with benefits. Other benefits and everything, you make that, and that's what's in your mind. You really don't. And there's a lot of people like that. And so, but like, you know, I'm doing a loan right now. You know, God willing, we're going to close you know, on Friday, and it's a you know, this lady first came to me. She didn't qualify, but then her daughter was going to be on the loan. Daughter lost her job the day they got a a contract. So we put her on what's called a bank statement loan. Higher interest rate. I do a lot of things. Her business has an enormous amount of turnover of cash flow, and so you're going to put her on that loan for 6 months. It's a 30-year loan, but she's going to stay on 6 months. Daughter gets a job, come back. But yes, I got the ability to do like that. They can get the house. She bought a house 100,000 under, praised for 100,000 under. I'm sorry, sold for 100,000 under appraised value here in Austin. So we're able to get through something like this. But back to the book, it says, stop right now, resolve to stop wishing things were easier. Well, I've had a hard time about that. He says, instead focus on making yourself better so that you rise to the occasion and outsell the crisis. Kind of like motivation. And he says something in here about this, so I'm going to go ahead and mention it. Quit trying to be, I'm talking to me. Danny, quit trying to be motivated. Just do the work. You don't need to be motivated. You don't need to feel like doing it. Just do it. Kind of like Jocko Willink says, discipline equals, freedom. Get your butt out of bed and go for that walk. I read an article.
If I waited for motivation, I wouldn't be walking.
Yeah. I read I'm reading a book right now called, I read it a year ago, recommended it to Eric Reckenwald and John, to Eric Reckenwald, and he and John Quirk are going through it. The name of the book is Younger Next Year. And my goodness, there's a piece in there. I think I sent it to you today, Herdy, some snippets I did about the importance of weightlifting, lifting weights as you get older, and what it does for your bone density. Scary how much it does for your bone density. Why aren't doctors telling you? I'm waiting to see my doctor. Next time I run into him, that I'd never heard that before. That lifting weights and lean muscle builds bone density. So anyway, this is a tough chapter here. Chapter 6 is be grateful for adversity. Come on.
So I was just, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was just thinking about your demise, and I was thinking Rocket Mortgage, their niche is what you said,
yeah.
But why don't you become the expert in Austin on how to mortgage a house during a crisis?
Well,
focus on that.
The problem is how you publicize it.
Right.
Okay. And you got to have, how do you market? How do you publicize it?
Right.
And so, I kind of already do, in one sense, with the whole thing around being a resource and stuff like that. And I've got, the realtor that brought me this loan, that, like I said, prayerfully closing on Friday, I haven't done a loan for this realtor in 8 years. But he reached out to me.
That means they're shopping, right? Yeah. That means they're looking to the expert.
Yeah. He's not shopping. He called me because he needed somebody to help this lady get a loan.
Right.
Okay.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to fit the Bank of America Rocket Mortgage on that.
Right.
It's the template. Right. We all know that, right?
Yeah. It's cookie cutter. They're looking, they're looking for 740 credit score, W-2 and pay stubs. But this little chapter on be grateful for adversity. He says we are not defined by our circumstances, but rather how we respond to them. And we've heard a lot of this stuff. We've heard 100 other places. Adversity is inescapable. It's also our most important teacher. Gratitude is a secret sauce of success and happiness. It is a cornerstone of a winning mindset, and the spark that ignites self-motivation and drive. Bitterness, cynicism, and entitlement cannot grow where gratitude is present. Well,
Danny, you just hit the nail on the head reading that. I was just looking at that.
Bingo.
Okay. So we have an entire, okay, sorry, but I'm saying, an entire generation that is bitter, cynical, and entitled. And they can't figure out what hit them.
Well,
I
which
mean-
generation you thinking about?
Well, it's not the boomers, but I mean, there's some people I talk to them, I had someone that told me point blank, why am I paying so much property tax? Wait a minute, you moved to Texas. You bought the 3 properties that were obscenely overpriced. And now you're going to blame it on the income tax system, which was different. I didn't have an answer because it wasn't.
There is no answer.
Right.
It's just it's the fact, Jack.
But he's a
That's what we
35-year-old
business.
person that owes $50,000 a year in
Right.
in property tax. Doesn't like it. I said, well, you can always sell.
Right.
I mean, it was complete silence. I didn't have a response about how to fix it other than sell
In this next chapter right here, dig for ponies. And I heard this joke.
Dig for ponies.
Yeah, I've heard this joke literally 45, 50 years ago. I remember the guy that told me this, and it ends with the boy says, and I heard it differently, but it's the same story. You see that big pile of horse poop? I've got to get to the bottom of it fast because there's a pony in there somewhere. Get out of my way. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I need to create business. And then he says you cannot afford the luxury of a negative thought. I called somebody yesterday, and he launched into complaining, and I immediately, and he wasn't complaining, he was bitching.
So quit hanging up on me like that, would you?
And some people just want to complain, and they're looking. What is it? There's 4 points to drama. Let's see if I remember all. One is you're looking to be offended. What were they, Hurley? You remember that lesson?
Well, you're looking to be offended is probably the top one. I don't remember the other 3. But after that one, doesn't matter.
You're looking to be offended. You're making stuff up. Your lack of noble intent. Anyway, it's a lesson I used to teach on drama.
Danny, the third one is your middle name is Karen. I'm just kidding. But there's a whole psychology.
Yeah, the whole Karen, and what's the guy's name?
I can't remember, but yeah, it's
Danny, Tom Hopkins used to say, as hokey as he was, I called him the car salesman of
he's good stuff. Training. He had some good stuff.
But the one thing he always said that resonates with me today is a no is just one step closer to a yes. And that just means you're meeting people and shaking hands, right? It's still a numbers game, no matter how you look at it. If you meet 10 people, you've got a chance to make a sale. You meet nobody, you have no chance. Yep. It's just that it's really that simple.
But back to drama.
Yeah.
Looking to be offended, making stuff up, not declaring noble intent. And the fourth one, what do you think it is, Beth? Jumping to conclusions.
You're muted, Beth.
Jumping to conclusions.
Jumping to conclusions. Okay, because I was going to say, you got me on the making stuff up because I have so many people make up stories. Like they don't know the story, so they fill the void. They just make it up.
Yeah. Well, it's like my brother my brother was telling a story recently, and he said, I love to tell stories. They don't need to be true.
Yeah.
Well, at some point in time, Dan, if you tell that same story that's made up, you start believing it.
Yeah,
exactly.
You actually take it into yourself as the truth. Absolutely.
Well, I will set back to we'll move on from this, but one more thing. If you go on Facebook or LinkedIn and you read, down there, that's one thing. But if you start reading comments, it's because you're looking to be offended. The next time you read comments, think about it. If you weren't trying to be, I've tested it on myself, and I'd added this into the lesson the last time I taught it a couple of years ago, and it's the truth. And just don't look at the comments unless, if you do, you're looking to be offended. Right here he says, whoops, got off of it. This was an interesting chapter on you. Chapter 9, the trouble with doom scrolling. Oh, think about it. Doom scrolling. Doom, gloom, and disaster always the story of the day. Spending an hour watching a cable news channel or scrolling through a social media feed will leave you in need of an antidepressant or therapist. I came home, went out to Tornado Lock Sunday afternoon, and to the winery, had a good time, came back, and I'm laying back on the couch. Next thing what do you think? I pulled up Facebook. Next thing I know, I had to go for a run. It's kind of like, oh my gosh. But it's the truth. The more you watch, the more addictive it becomes. Don't get in the buckets with the crabs. But instead build others up, change the words you're using when interacting with other people, make a conscious effort to find positive things to talk about, stop complaining. Invest in yourself. This group, we all do that. Here are 8 things you can do right now to invest in yourself. Block at least 15 minutes on your calendar every day for professional reading. Listen to an audio book while you walk or exercise. Online courses like Hillsdale. He says, like Sales Gravy University. That's his podcast. Unbelievable stuff. This guy really is good. Listen to motivational professional podcasts. The 12-week year, Beth will remember this. One part of the 12-week year is that every week you take 4 hours during your work week.
Yes.
And spend time on yourself.
Almost impossible.
Yeah. And go to bed early and get enough sleep. Set new goals. Napoleon Hill said, desire is a starting point of all achievement, not a hope, not a wish, but a keen, pulsating desire which transcends everything. This was really good for me because I have the tendency right now, I just want to put my head down and work, pay attention, work. And but this is the time to be, thinking about your vision, said earlier, and setting new goals. Desire is essential to self-discipline because discipline is the act of sacrificing what you want now for what you desire the most. Goals define desire in tangible terms. What do you want? This right here comes. I want to add something to this. I don't normally like to add stuff to books, but I want to add something to this. He says this requires you to answer 3 questions. What do you want? How do you plan to get what you want? And how bad do you want it? Napoleon Hill said, what do you want? What are you going to give up to get it? When do you want it by? And how are you going to get it? Take those 4 things, write it down, and then read it twice a day.